here we are with Portia or Panayota Pantages, right?
Pantages.
Pantages,
Right.
who is still living in the original house of her family in Woburn, and she was a member of the original group that started the church. So, Portia, what do you remember about the first group of kids your age? Your
Well, they were very excited. They were excited because most of them, of course, I knew them from the cathedral, because we're all members of the cathedral at the
Yes.
time, and we were all going to church at the cathedral, and they were so excited, as I was, that we were going to have a church so close to home. And when we went into the church, it was an older church, but it had the beauty that we knew that we could make a wonderful church out of, and we did. And they were, as I was, very excited. We all wanted to help. We all asked, what can we do? And they gave us, jobs to do,
Yeah.
which was great.
And Mr. Christos, your father,
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Maria, your mother, had come from what part of Greece?
Okay, my dad came from Kaviniesi, Greece, which is in the northern part of Greece. My mother is from Yorietsi, Sparta, Greece. And they both came to the United States as young children
With their families.
with their families,
Yes.
right?
And
Now, my mother was already an American citizen because my grandfather had come to this country 10 years prior, and he became a United States citizen. So my mother and her sisters came in as United States citizens.
So what did your grandfather do then? When he came,
He was working in the factory,
in fact,
yeah, in Lynn, Mass.
in Lynn, yes,
Mhm,
yes.
yeah.
And then where did Mrs. Maria and Mr. Christos meet each other?
Okay, they ate in Proxigna,
Proximia,
of
yes,
course,
yes.
and they met at St. George's Cathedral in Springfield.
Oh,
Because
nice.
my mother, when she came to this country, they went to to her uncle's restaurant in Springfield, which was called the Nutty Goody Shop,
Very good show.
and they were members of St.
Yes.
George's,
Yes.
and that's where they met.
And then what moved them here?
Well, what moved them here is my dad had restaurants.
Yes.
And at that time, he had the restaurants down the Cape. And so he had to go to the Cape during the summer months. It was April, I think to the latter part of October. And they moved down. They had a rental down the Cape. And I was born at the Cape Cod Hospital there because I'm a summer baby.
And then when did they buy the house in Woburn?
They bought the house in Woburn, and they closed in May 1957.
And you've been living there ever since?
I have.
Okay, so here we are, 1959, the excitement of the new church, and we have testimony from several people who said how it started, and there are many wonderful documents and incidents described. So you're surrounded by how many people were teenagers at the time?
I'll say it was the Bassett boys,
Yes.
both of them. It was Charlie Markin and his brother Demo, if I can remember correctly. Then there was also Sophia and Theodore Voss. Now, they're no longer here. I think Sophia lives in Greece, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Theodore, is in New York. And then there was also the Cannabis Boys.
Yes.
And they were also teenagers at the time. And then we had other ladies, were not teenagers, but they were in the group, was Christine Sekas and her sister. And it was quite a few of us. And like I said, we were very excited because it was going to be something different, something new, something that we were going to start from the roots and build up. And I think that's what excited us the most.
And you were at the center of it. You were not attached to a different group, like if you were in another church like the cathedral, you would be part of.
Yes.
But this time you were in the middle of it.
Exactly.
It is your family,
Yeah.
your friends, your classmates
Mm-hmm.
who are,
Yeah.
yes. And so, do you remember the first priest that was assigned?
Oh, I do remember him. He was a very kind, nice
Yes.
man. He, it was, he was a genuine person, and he loved St. Demetrius. He really, really did. He was very good with the children, a very kind individual, and we missed him when he left.
Yes, he left in a year and a half or so.
Yes, that's
He
right.
was reassigned.
Yes.
What about any extracurricular activities that you did? I know there was Goya and Greek school, etc., etc. What do you remember about the life of these groups?
Well, I didn't I was not really in Goya. And the reason I wasn't in Goya is because when I got out of school, I would go and work in one of my father's restaurants because I just enjoyed that. I just enjoyed being there. And at that time, he had a restaurant in Beacon Hill, which I worked at, and he also had one down on Devonshire Street. So but I did join the Y'all group when they had the
Yeah.
Y'all group, and then years and years later, I was one of the directors of the Y'all group, and I had maybe about 30 of them, and we had it out of the Cathedral Center, and also out of the Metropolis Center.
And the do you remember anything about the picnics that there were at the church? I understand there was big activity once a year or whatever next to the river there.
It was a small gathering. Yeah, it was a
yes.
gathering. I don't remember that too much.
Okay,
No, I don't.
okay.
But I do remember the activity that went on. The people that were excited. I mean, that's what you could feel in the air, the
Yes.
excitement, because this was going to be a new church. This is going to be something they were going to be built. These are the people that had a vision. And the vision became a reality.
Yes.
And what a reality became, we have over 600 families now.
Yes.
And that's what I think it made the church what it is today.
Yes.
And every priest who has come here has been an asset. It's been an asset to the church.
Yes. And what about the life of the parish? What did you play any roles? Were you a member of anything, choirs or whatever? As the church was being
I was
built?
in the choir in 1972. I was the first woman elected to the parish council,
Wonderful.
and I served till 1979.
Who was the president then? Do you remember?
George Makris.
George, yes,
Makris
George.
was the one that brought me in because at that time I was just elected the first woman president of the Pan-Laconian Federation.
Ah,
And so he brought me in as a board member. And I ran quite a few functions out of the hall.
yes.
We had delightful Apocryatio Glendis. We also had an Azure Ball
Yes.
that we did not go to the Sydney Hill Country Club or the hotel. We had it in the hall, and it was very successful.
Oh,
It was,
wonderful,
yeah.
yes. And what is as you go back and you remember the days of Newton Laura Falls, or even the first days
Mhm.
here, what are some of the personalities that stick to your mind? Okay, George Macris, for example.
Oh, George Makris was
is a charismatic guy. And,
another person who did a lot for this church, who's no longer with us again, was Jimmy Zaglakis. I don't know if you heard, but he had a restaurant down in Cambridge, and he was also on the board with us. A very giving human being, always there with a helping hand. Another one. There were so many of them. I mean, I just don't want to, miss one along
course,
the
yes.
line.
No.
But they were just. But Jimmy Zaglakis was exceptional. He was very, very
I'm glad
exceptional.
to hear that because that name hasn't come
Yeah,
up.
he was
So
exceptional.
I'm glad you remembered him. What about there for the naming of the church?
I
that
was
night?
with my dad.
With your dad.
I was. It was very exciting. I was
That's
very.
what I understand. Yes, yes. And what side was your father on? What name did your father prefer?
My
Because-
father really liked St. Demetrius.
He did?
Really
Okay,
did.
good.
Yeah, he did. He thought that would, it was there wasn't one around here per se, and I
Yes.
thought that was a good one. And there were a lot of Demetris
Yes,
that were
correct.
members of the
That's-
church.
that's
So
eventually
I mean,
what
that had another
clinched
one
it.
too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
And today, what is it that you do here?
What do? Okay, I head up the mailing ministry.
Yes?
I was also a chairperson of 50-something Club, which we don't have anymore. And with two other friends, I cook on a monthly basis for the Senior Guild.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're still working
And
successfully?
I'm still a real estate
in
broker.
real estate, yes.
Going into my 37th year in
Yeah,
January.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And what advice do you have for the incoming families now? As you said, there are 600 some families at least, and they're joining us from all over the area. What advice do you have, since you are now a veteran of this community?
My advice is that once they come here, they will never leave.
What do you think the magic is?
It is the way they engulf people. I think the people are very friendly. We go out of our way to meet new people and to introduce ourselves, and that has a lot to do with it. It
Yes.
really does. I do also, because I did grow up at the cathedral, I still have dual membership there at the cathedral too, and I think some other people do also. My parents did. But I think it's a different, how can I say, warmth. And it has a common bond. Because people feel wanted. And I think once a person feels wanted, then they feel this is where I belong.
Wonderful. Thank you, Portia.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thanks.
with everything that you do.